Well, I was born in Canada. My parents were immigrants from Britain, from Scotland. And I was born in Ontario and went to school there. And then went to college. And then I moved to the United States because one of my children had terrible bronchial problems, and doctors said, I recommend going to a warmer climate. So of all things, I moved to Florida with the whole family, moved to Florida. So that's how I got to be doing it.
What part of Florida, at curiosity?
So Miami to begin with. Then later I worked at Cape Kennedy on the space program.
I was born and raised in Sarasota.
On where you?
The coast. Yeah. Then I went in the Army, and then the Army brought me to Texas, and I stayed.
Where you stayed?
I stayed. So you grew up in Canada.
Yeah.
But how was your childhood? I know it was a Great Depression.
It was a Great Depression, but I was fortunate. My father worked for General Motors, so the assembly plant right in the town I grew up in. So during the Depression, my dad was able to keep a job, through the whole Depression. But a lot of my friends, and so their parents were out of work, and it was pretty bad.
And Canada was equally as bad as the United States during the Depression, right? I mean, it was everybody was equally affected.
Yeah.
And so you grew up there and went to school there. Were you able to go all the way through high school and have a full education?
Well, no, I dropped out in about my 4th year in high school to join. Well, I would have been drafted anyway.
Yeah.
So I joined the military and joined the Air Force because I always thought the idea of being a pilot or flying. And my dad was also in the Air Force during World War II.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. Your dad, how did that work with your dad?
Well, of course, he was about 44 when he enlisted. Of course, he had been in World War I in Merchant Marine, but interesting. In World War II, he was very patriotic, I guess. He thought he needed to get in there and help the war effort. So he gave up his job. He had joined the Air Force in Canada. And then they sent him to a big, they were called base for aircraft where every so many $1,000, they got to have them complete renovation and check out. And interestingly, when my dad was at this base, there were some Americans there that came up to join the Canadian Air Force prior to Pearl Harbor. And one of them was from Texas, isn't that? And another was from Long, the two-door state. But I got to know them a little bit because on weekend, sometimes they'd bring them home to the base there to visit.
Interesting. Very interesting. And so, what age were you when you joined?
I was about 18.
18. Youngster.
I was pretty young. Yeah, jeez.
And so, how did it work in Canada? Canada had the draft as well.
They had a draft. Yeah.
And so you joined, and then you did your training close by, or where did you have to go for your training?
Well, they had like a depot where you first enlist, and they give you, your uniform, your shots, and then I went to like initial training, which was mainly they were trying to figure out what your best aptitudes were, and also teach a little bit about military law, rules and regulations, discipline. Yeah.
So you enlisted in Ontario. You joined in Ontario. You did your the depot stuff there.
I did the depot, then I went through this initial training that they called it for not really about 2 or 3 months.
Okay. And where was that? Was that far?
That was not too far. It was only about 60 miles from my home. So we could use the hitchhike goal on the weekends if I had a car, which was convenient. But then after that, I was sent to a navigation school out in the western part of Canada, near Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I went through all the navigation school, and I was doing fine up to the very end. You had to do celestial navigation, and to fly at night, shoot the star. And of course, the British had some system. They had to project a map onto your board, where your maps moved, and it showed the altitude of the different stars. So you had to set the time and everything. I think I had a problem with my eyesight or something, and the plane was balancing around. So somehow or other, I didn't make it. I was almost finished, so I was pretty upset.
Oh, absolutely.
So then they said, well, we'll send you to be an air gunner, wireless operator. So I was a wireless operator, air gunner. And actually, the wireless school it's right in Winnipeg, so I stayed in the same town, in different base. Yeah, of course, that was kind of along the process. You had to learn Morse code up to 18 words a minute. It was pretty, I think, wow, good. But then the war was starting to wind down, so they closed that base, and we had to finish our training out in Calgary, Alberta, near Calgary. And then we were flying AT-6s, which were North American AT-6s, which was a nice model plane, that was set up for our wireless radios and everything. So then after spending some time in Calgary finishing up wireless, I was sent down to Quebec, St. Lawrence River, to the gunnery school, where we trained, firing machine guns at targets, drones that they towed behind other planes.
Wow, you had a little of every aspect of that plane, did you? Holy cow. That was quite a...
Well, we actually, at this school, we flew a bunch of older planes that the British had left over because they were sort of obsolete. The Germans just shouted out. They did not. It was very good, maneuverable. So anyway, we trained on these, but we were the last squadron. So, they didn't always maintain it too well. Had a couple of incidents where we were taken off and the engines clogged out of this too. Fortunately, we were able to get down. This wintertime, we ran into a snowbank.
Yikes.
Yeah. But, that was about the gist of my career. When I graduated, the war was winding out, so they put a group in the reserve squad.
Yeah.
Isn't that? So then I got discharged in May or 4 years. Fine. Yeah. The war wasn't over yet with Japan, but they had so many trained pilots and crews in Britain.
Yeah.
So they all going to be sent to Far East.
Well, as soon as German, there was a B on the end of the war, all the countries started cutting as quickly as possible because they didn't want the extra.
All the money, it was costing the pilot money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But boy, oh boy, I'm glad you're here today with us. It has to be a little unnerving when you're flying a plane that the British didn't want.
Oh, yeah. And the guys, I think they were figured out the last flight, they probably shut it down by the plane instead of that. Because 2 or 3 of the planes in our squadron had to make crash maintenance and harder steel. I was like the items run my engine calm down. But
unbelievable. That's quite an adventure you had. My gosh.
Yeah. But I didn't, unfortunately, I never got into action. So
that doesn't mean anything. I had many of my fellow service members that I served with who never served in combat, and they say the same thing.
Yeah.
The good Lord chose all of us to be at a certain place at a certain time. Yeah. We did what we were told to do.
Right. We were willing, to do whatever to get almost to do.
We have no control over any of that.
No.
We're part of the machine.
We just had to go. Yeah.
So when you were discharged, what did you do after that?
Well, the Canadian government had set up a system of if you didn't have your high school graduation, you could go back to like an accelerated course.
I see.
So I did about 6 months. I finished my senior year in high school and got my high school degree. And then I was eligible to go to college. And then I went to the University of Toronto and took civil engineering. And that was pretty interesting. And the government helped, because they helped pay for your books and tuition for so many months, depending on how many months you've been in the service. So I paid for about half of my education.
Sort of like what they call the GI.
Yeah, it's very simple.
Yeah.
And as we had long summers, I would be out from April till September. So I get a job that worked, different occupations, using some of my engineering, using some of my engineering. I'll just get a job building rubber stuff and during the material, pulp and paper industry. That was kind of interesting. And to lay out these roads to avoid, muskegs and things, and also avoid steep hills. And there was all virgin timber, it never been cut,
Sure.
Yeah. So that was interesting. Then I worked for a city engineer in the town I lived in another summer and got a little more engineering experience.
So you graduated probably college in like
1950.
Okay, good. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's 4 years after. And then did you stay in that area afterwards?
Yeah, I married about a year after I got out of college. Got worked for a while with Kodak company.
Yeah, sure.
They had a office in Canada.
They were based in Rochester.
They were
makers, right?
Headquarters were in Rochester.
It's not far.
They have a plant in Toronto, which was about 2 point.
Yeah.
And they hired me to design or help. There was a couple of our engineers. I was a junior guy, but we were in the process of designing a new film technicolor lab for developing film.
I see.
It was a 5-story building, pretty big building. And we had pretty well had it almost design. Then the Korean War came, they hadn't finished the construction, so they canceled the design. They hadn't really started construction, so with the Korean War, they couldn't get steel or they should. So they had they canceled it. So they didn't need me anymore. I was excess first. So I had to look around for another job with a power company that designed power plants, dams, and things like that. And I was working there at the time that my son got so sick. And then I left there and got a job in Florida and worked mainly on the space program, designing launch pads at Cape Kennedy.
What year did you start working there, roughly?
56.
56.
Yeah.
What an interesting career to be able to work on something like that. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Because those are the early days of the.
It's a good prayer. He knows. They're 2 or 3 years into it. They had designed, they had some earlier launches before the Apollo. The Apollo was the one that met first.
Sure.
We worked in that company. We did some projects on some of the other Minuteman launch. We did some work on Minuteman and a couple other, but I was just pretty new, so I didn't get into those too much. So we designed the original pier at Cape Canaveral, where the Polaris submarines just come in, pick up their vessel, they then go out in the Atlantic and have a test firing. And of course, they went down to the Eastern Test Range so they could track this one. That was pretty interesting, to design that pier.
So, and how long did you work on the space program?
I worked in Miami from 56 until 63.
Okay.
It's about 7 years. And then I met my good wife, Jimmy, and we were living in Miami, and I was still working for the same company. She saw an ad in the Seattle paper, said, "Oh, and you engineers at Cape Kennedy was paying down." So she was a big flight attendant, so she said, "Oh, they get flight breakfast." So I went up and worked at Cape Kennedy proper at our Sainte Air Force Base in the Cape. That's right there. And it was kind of interesting. There were smaller projects, but I had to make trips flying down to the islands down the Caribbean, all the way down. In fact, we had a base all the way down in Ascension in the South Atlantic Ocean, about halfway between Africa, something's
Interesting.
and that was interesting.
And what kind of things did you do? Or
Probably maybe had to design water distribution system.
exactly.
We had, down in some of those islands in the Caribbean don't get much rainfall.
Yeah.
And they had big catchment basins where they would catch the rain. But that wasn't enough. They had to build desalination plants to augment the water supply. Some of the islands that they must, that was travel valley. Worked on radars. We had a couple of radars we had to be proud and tearing down and going back together again. That just things to.
That's a lot of interesting things you worked on. That's quite an interesting career. Holy cow.
Yeah, so I worked there. Then the space program started winding down. Yet after the Apollo mission and everything. So I could see that things, they were starting to lay out people. So I got a job up in Michigan working in a company that designed power plants.
I see.
Worked there for about 5 years, I guess, 5 or 6 years. And then one of my old boss, who still worked at Cape Canaveral, called me up one day and said their company was looking for engineering people out on the West Coast at the Bangor, Trident Missile Base, there, Seattle.
Yeah.
So it's not the Puget Sound, it's not Good Connect. Very silly. So I worked there for about 40 years. Spent a lot of time there, but mainly just we were responsible for all the water, the sewer, the power, grounds maintenance, buildings maintenance, roads maintenance, probably just, and little engineering projects, modifier building, a put an addition fair. Yeah.
Did you retire from there?
Yeah, I did. Finally retired. Yeah.
What year did you retire?
2015.
Okay.
I was 89 years old, but I retired. I retired a couple of times. The first time I retired, I was off for a month or so, and then they asked me to come back and help on a project, which I did. And then when that project ended, I went back and worked in the library, sort of working on updating all the projects that came in, but a new building was built or modified. We had to make sure it was recorded on the master plan. It was just a part-time job. I only worked about 3 days a week.
How old are you right now, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I'll be 100 years old next month.
Next month, what's your birthday?
April 7th.
April 7th.
Right.
Is there any kind of a party or anything planned for
Then my kids and my daughter and my wife are home. We got
something schemed up?
Yes.
Handsome. That's amazing. And then Did you come to Texas as a result of your family?
Yeah, and basically, yeah, my two daughters, I had two sons, two daughters. If I both daughters, one moved to Texas, about 10 years ago or something like that, and the other about 5 years ago. First one married a guy who she met in Washington State, but he was from Texas, so they moved to Texas.
I see.
And then she had 4 children, so she and her 4 kids all moved to Texas. And then about 4 or 5 years later, my youngest daughter, she got
Yes.
She had been married to a guy who'd been in the Navy, but they got divorced. And then she moved to about 5 years ago. Yeah, she moved to Austin. So with the 2 kids and of them, we got 6 grandkids. They've been after us for a year or two. Like, you moved out here, we can sort of keep an eye on you. So we did, although it was hard. I still have a son that lives in Washington State. I had 2 grandkids there. And then another son lives in Wisconsin. He's got 2 boys there. So
Well, you sure picked a nice place to live here. Doesn't get much better than the Woodlands.
oh, I know, it's gorgeous there. Yeah, and it's so nice and sunny most of the time here.
It's just beautiful.
We were getting a little tired. Of course, we lived in Washington 40 years, but my wife, Judy, she was getting pretty fed up with the rain because it would rain from October till April almost. I mean, not every day, but that's minutes. I mean, it wasn't just like here, you get a thunderstorm, it rains, it clears out. Same in Florida.
Yeah.
Thunderstorm clears out, but the Washington State, especially around Seattle, it just rains with daytime. You never see the sun. And it's depressing.
I did some training at Fort Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
You're inside. I understand that.
Thank you.
I understand it very well. And I remember too, in the woods and the forest, they had these huge anthills, these big, tall anthills that were sometimes 5 or 6 feet tall.
Really?
And they were protected. I guess they were, I don't know, rare something. But when we would do our training things, and if we go down in a fighting position and you happen to be, we call them the super highways, where the ants would go between the anthills, and you happen to fall in one of them, they would tear you to pieces.
So those are the red ants?
Yeah. And they would have these, we call them super highways, but they were about this wide. Mm-hmm. And it's the route that the ants would travel, build these hills. And there would be, thousands of them in this little, I remember
that actually bite your
airport. Yeah. And then they're in your sleeve, hit you on the ground, they're in your,
I never saw anything.
I've been to other places in Washington. I've never seen them, but for some reason,
they did have ants at all. Yeah. Cutting the grass. And a couple of times I was standing and trying to adjust the lawnmower, and all of a sudden, these red ants were coming up.
That's no fun.
No.
Well, I was going to ask, I wanted to get your perspective on our teenagers, kids, we'll say our youth today. They have not had to go through all the things that you went through, growing up during the Great Depression. But what advice would you give to a teenager today who's just, growing up and trying to figure out what they want to do in life? What advice would you give to them?
Well, I would say work hard, get some kind of training, at a university or technical school, and try to do something to help improve life for people. Help your country, help the world. I would say that would be my advice.
And our military today, obviously, is with all the fighter jets and all the things we have now, the Air Force today, very different. How do you feel about our military today? Do you think we're ready? Do you think we have some work to do? What do you think about where we're at right now for our military?
I think we have a little work to do right now. I think we sort of reduced the military spending there from huge. I think we need to build up our military down. But I do it intelligently, right? Too.
They're struggling with the implementation of the new Raptor fighter jet. The Air Force is struggling a little bit to perfect
the P-35. It's a guy,
F-35 Raptor. Yes, I had we were invited, myself and a couple other guys, we were invited out to Hill Air Force Base in Utah, which is where they test the Raptors still. And they allowed us to go up in the air traffic control tower, and they were flying the Raptors. Yeah. And the capabilities of those, they're just unbelievable.
Boy, the things they can do.
They're just unbelievable. But with that comes a lot of computers, a lot of technical things, and a lot of problems. They've got a lot of challenges.
Yeah, things so interconnect just right. Pun. Actually, I remember when I worked in Florida, they had another little group that was separate from the main contract, and we did a little special project. And we did do some radar traffic control center towers, updated them. I was just along because I had to make sure we could support them on the floor, but the radar guys I worked with were designing the radars. And we updated them all over. We did one in the north of the Pacific Station.
Yeah.
One Texas. And did one at the Marine base, Cherry Point.
Yeah.
We did one up in our jet shed in Newfoundland. Then we did one that's and we also, in the same office, we designed a building up at Fort Churchill, Manitoba.
Sure.
Which was being used at that time to do research on the upper there's about radiation, things that cause the aurora borealis. So I was up there a couple of weeks designing this building. It was in the winter time, it's about 15, and I'm sick of it. And a couple of times we had snow outs, and the wind blows, you can't see. And I'm like, that was pretty interesting to be able to think with a bunch of Eskimos lived there, and native Canadians, guess, and call.
Yeah. You've had quite an interesting,
that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. You've had quite an interesting journey for 99 years.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you've seen or what you've done and what you've been through. And it's just unbelievable.
Well, I don't think I did that much for you. But we were part of a team. I mean, when we design these big towers, we break it down. Somebody can design portions of it, clips in it. But it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was brilliant.
I tell you,